She was the packless wolf, the voiceless omega who scrubbed floors while her stepsister wore crowns. When her fated mate, a powerful alpha lord, felt their bond snap into place, he didn't claim her. He destroyed her. In front of the entire pack, he called her cursed, accused her of dark magic, and let her own family throw her into the sacred river to drown. But the Moon River doesn't kill those it chooses. Transforms them. She sank as nothing and rose as everything. A moon-bound Luna with power that makes alphas kneel. Now she's back, and the pack that tried to erase her is about to learn that some women don't just survive betrayal. They become the reckoning. And when a brutal hybrid king crosses her path, their forbidden bond will shatter every rule the wolf world ever made. The bucket slipped from Evelyn's hands and clattered across the marble floor, soapy water spreading in a dark stain across the polished stone. She dropped to her knees immediately, her heart hammering as voices echoed from the hallway. The Luna ceremony was in 3 hours, and if anyone saw this mess, if her stepmother Victoria found even one reason to punish her today of all days, Evelyn knew she wouldn't survive it. She scrubbed frantically, her raw hands screaming in protest, but the water had already seeped under the ceremonial runner that led to the great hall. Footsteps approached, light and deliberate, and Evelyn's stomach dropped. "Still on your knees where you belong, sister." Charlotte's voice dripped with false sweetness as she appeared in the doorway, her white ceremony gown shimmering like moonlight itself. She was beautiful, golden-haired and perfect. Everything an alpha's mate should be. Everything Evelyn was not. Evelyn kept her head down and continued scrubbing. Speaking without permission would only make things worse, and she had learned years ago that silence was her only shield. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Charlotte's tone sharpened. Evelyn lifted her gaze slowly. Her stepsister stood with 3 other pack members, all dressed in their finest for tonight's moon festival, all looking at Evelyn like she was something stuck to their shoes. "Alpha Sebastian arrives in 2 hours, Charlotte said, examining her perfect nails. "When he announces our engagement tonight, I want you serving drinks. I want everyone to see the difference between us. I want them to remember that some wolves are born to lead and others are born to serve." One of the girls behind Charlotte laughed. "Does she even have a wolf? I've never felt anything from her." "She's cursed," another whispered, loud enough for Evelyn to hear. "My mother says she's the reason Alpha Theodore died. The moon goddess rejected her and the pack paid the price." Evelyn's fingers tightened on the rag. Her father, her real father, had died when she was 5, and within a year her mother had married Victoria's brother, bringing Charlotte into their lives like a beautiful poison. When her mother died 2 years later under mysterious circumstances, Victoria had taken control of everything, and Evelyn had become less than nothing in her own home. "Clean yourself up," Charlotte said, wrinkling her nose. "You smell like a servant. Actually, you are a servant." "How fitting." The girls laughed again as they swept past, their perfume choking the air. Evelyn waited until their footsteps faded before she let herself breathe. Her hands were shaking as she finished cleaning the floor, and when she finally stood, her knees ached from kneeling on the hard stone. The Moon Festival was the most sacred night of the year, when unmated wolves gathered under the full moon to find their fated mates. The bond would snap into place like lightning, undeniable and absolute, and the lucky pair would be blessed by the moon goddess herself. Charlotte had been preparing for months, certain that Alpha Sebastian of the Northern Ridge Pack would claim her tonight and elevate their entire territory. Evelyn had no such hopes. She was 22 and had never felt even a whisper of her wolf. The pack called her broken, cursed, an abomination that the goddess had turned her back on. She had stopped believing in fated mates or blessings or anything beyond surviving one more day. She carried the bucket to the storage room and changed into the plain black dress that Victoria had left for her, the uniform of the serving staff. It hung loose on her thin frame, and when she caught sight of herself in the cracked mirror, she barely recognized the hollow-eyed girl staring back. The great hall was already filling with pack members when Evelyn slipped inside through the servants' entrance. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across the polished floors, and tables overflowed with food and wine. The air hummed with excitement and the sharp scent of anticipation. Evelyn kept to the shadows, carrying trays of drinks and disappearing before anyone could really see her. That was when the doors opened and Alpha Sebastian walked in. The entire hall fell silent. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes like steel, and his presence hit the room like a physical force. Power radiated from him in waves, and Evelyn felt it even from across the hall, felt the way every wolf instinctively lowered their gaze in submission. He was everything an alpha should be, and when Charlotte stepped forward in her white gown, smiling like she had already won, Evelyn felt a sick twist in her stomach. Sebastian's gaze swept the room, cold and assessing, and then it landed on Evelyn. Everything stopped. The bond slammed into her chest like a lightning strike, stealing her breath and dropping her to her knees. The tray crashed to the floor, glasses shattering, and the sound echoed through the silent hall like a gunshot. Evelyn gasped, her entire body shaking as the mate bond blazed to life, hot and consuming and absolutely undeniable. No, this couldn't be happening. Sebastian's eyes widened, his face going pale, and she knew he felt it too. The bond pulled tight between them, a golden thread that sang with recognition and need and rightness. For one heartbeat, Evelyn let herself hope. Then Sebastian's expression twisted into pure disgust. No. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. Absolutely not. Evelyn flinched as if he had struck her. The bond throbbed in her chest, desperate and pleading, but Sebastian took a step back like she was something toxic. You. He pointed at her, his voice rising. You did this. You used dark magic to fake a bond. You tried to trap me. The accusation hit her like ice water. Evelyn shook her head frantically, trying to speak, but her voice had been beaten out of her years ago and no sound came out. She's cursed, someone whispered from the crowd. Everyone knows it. The goddess would never pair an alpha with something like that, another voice added. Charlotte pushed forward, her face a mask of false concern. Sebastian, I'm so sorry. My stepsister has always been disturbed. She's obsessed with taking what isn't hers. I've heard of witches who can manufacture false bonds, Victoria said smoothly, appearing beside Charlotte. It's forbidden magic, punishable by death. She must have been planning this for months. No, Evelyn whispered, the word barely audible. Please. Sebastian's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. I, Alpha Sebastian of the Northern Ridge Pack, reject you as my mate. I sever this bond and cast you out as an abomination against the moon goddess. The rejection tore through her like claws, shredding her from the inside out. Evelyn screamed, a raw sound of pure agony, and collapsed on the shattered glass. The bond didn't break cleanly. It ripped, leaving jagged edges that burned like poison, and she could feel it festering in her chest, turning black and toxic. She needs to be punished, Charlotte said, her voice filled with righteous anger. She tried to use dark magic against an alpha. That's treason. Throw her in the Moon River, someone shouted from the crowd. Let the goddess judge her. The chant spread through the hall like wildfire. Throw her in. Throw her in. Throw her in. Evelyn tried to stand, tried to run, but hands grabbed her from all sides. Pack members she had served for years, people she had lived beside her entire life, dragged her through the halls and out into the night. The full moon hung huge and silver overhead, and the sacred Moon River glittered in the distance, its waters blessed and purifying. Or so they said. Victoria and Charlotte led the mob, their faces triumphant. Sebastian followed behind, his expression cold and unmoved, and Evelyn realized with bitter clarity that no one was going to save her. No one had ever been going to save her. They reached the river's edge where the festival had been set up with lanterns and offerings. This was supposed to be a night of blessings and new beginnings, but instead, it had become her execution. Any last words, sister? Charlotte asked, leaning close. Her breath smelled like wine and victory. Oh wait, you don't have any. You never did. The crowd laughed, and Victoria raised her hands for silence. The moon goddess sees all. If this girl is innocent, the river will spare her. If she is cursed, the waters will cleanse her from this world. It was a lie. Everyone knew that no one survived the Moon River. The current was too strong, the waters too cold, and the enchantments that protected it would drown anyone who entered without permission from the goddess herself. Evelyn looked at Sebastian one last time, searching for any sign of regret or mercy, but his face was stone. He had rejected her utterly, and now he would watch her die without lifting a finger to stop it. Charlotte smiled, beautiful and terrible, and shoved Evelyn hard. Evelyn fell. The water hit her like a wall of ice, stealing her breath and dragging her under instantly. The current seized her and pulled her down, down, down into darkness so complete that she couldn't tell which way was up. Her lungs burned and her limbs went numb, and the last thing she thought before the black water closed over her head was that maybe this was mercy after all. But then the water changed. It went from freezing to warm and the darkness filled with silver light. Evelyn opened her eyes and found herself floating in an impossible space, suspended between water and light and something that felt like pure power. The bond in her chest, the one Sebastian had tried to sever, suddenly flared to life again, but different now, stronger and cleaner. A figure materialized in front of her, made of moonlight and starshine and ancient magic. The moon spirit was beautiful beyond words, with eyes like galaxies and a presence that made Evelyn want to kneel. "Little wolf," the spirit said, and her voice echoed through Evelyn's bones. "Do you know what you are?" Evelyn tried to speak, but no words came out. She never had words when she needed them. The spirit smiled sadly. "They took your voice when you were a child. They sealed your power at birth. They made you into nothing so that no one would ever suspect the truth." She reached out and touched Evelyn's chest right over her heart. "You are not an Omega child. You are a moon-bound Luna, born once every 1,000 years, blessed with power that could bring alphas to their knees and reshape the very laws of our kind." Evelyn's eyes widened in shock. "Your mother knew," the spirit continued. "She tried to protect you by sealing your power, hoping you could live a quiet life. But her death was no accident. Victoria discovered what you were and has been poisoning you with wolfsbane since you were 7 years old, keeping your wolf suppressed and your power locked away." Rage, hot and fierce, blazed through Evelyn's chest. All those years of suffering, of being called cursed and broken, of believing she was worthless, had been a lie. A deliberate, calculated lie. "The rejection should have killed you," the spirit said. "But it broke the seal instead. Your power is waking, little Luna. The question is, what will you do with it?" Evelyn felt something surge inside her chest, something huge and wild and absolutely furious. Her wolf rose for the first time, not weak or broken, but powerful beyond measure, and when she opened her mouth, words finally came. "I need to survive." Her voice was clear and strong, and it rang through the sacred space like a bell. "I need to get stronger." The spirit's smile turned knowing. "Then rise, moon-bound Luna. But know this, your power is still waking. It will take time to fully manifest. Do not reveal yourself until you are ready. Survive first. Grow strong. Then return and claim what is yours." The silver light exploded outward, and Evelyn felt herself being pulled back up through the water. Her body screamed as the transformation began, the wolfsbane burning out of her system, but the spirit's warning echoed in her mind. She wasn't ready yet. She needed to hide what she had become. She broke the surface of the moon river, gasping and choking, her body weak and shaking. The festival crowd on the banks had grown larger, more pack members gathering to watch the cursed Omega drown. When they saw her surface, confusion rippled through them. "She's alive," someone shouted. "Impossible," Victoria said, her face going pale. "No one survives the moon river." Charlotte's expression twisted with fury. "She used dark magic. She's proven her guilt. Kill her now before she curses us all." Evelyn's heart hammered in her chest as she struggled toward the far bank, away from the crowd. Her limbs felt strange and new, power thrumming just beneath her skin, but she was terrified and disoriented. She didn't know how to use what the spirit had given her. She only knew she had to run. "Don't let her escape," Sebastian commanded, his alpha voice booming across the water. "She's a threat to every pack. Hunt her down." The crowd surged forward, and Evelyn heard the snarls as pack members shifted into their wolves. Terror gave her strength, and she hauled herself onto the opposite bank, her wet dress clinging to her body. She stumbled to her feet and ran. Behind her, dozens of wolves plunged into the moon river, driven by bloodlust and fear. The sacred waters that should have protected her now became a highway for her hunters. Evelyn crashed through the underbrush, branches tearing at her skin and clothes, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She heard them gaining on her, heard Charlotte's wolf snarl with anticipation, and panic flooded her system. The power inside her flickered and surged, responding to her terror, but she didn't know how to control it. Silver light sparked from her fingertips and died just as quickly. A wolf lunged from the shadows, teeth bared, and Evelyn screamed. The power exploded outward instinctively, a pulse of silver energy that sent the wolf flying backward with a yelp. But the effort left her dizzy and weak, and she realized with growing horror that she couldn't fight them all. Not yet. Not like this. She ran harder, pushing her body beyond its limits, and felt her own wolf rising for the first time. The shift was agonizing, her bones breaking and reforming, fur erupting across her skin. She had never shifted before, never even felt her wolf stir, and now it was happening while she ran for her life. The transformation completed mid-stride, and suddenly Evelyn was running on 4 legs instead of 2. Her wolf was smaller than the pack wolves chasing her, but faster, and her newfound instincts took over. She dodged between trees, leaped over fallen logs, and pushed deeper into the forest. "She's heading for the borderlands," someone shouted behind her. "She'll die out there anyway. The rogues will tear her apart." "Good," Charlotte's voice rang out, cold and satisfied. "Let them finish what we started. She's a rogue now. She has no pack, no protection, no home. She's as good as dead." The pack wolves stopped at the border, their territory ending at a line marked by ancient stones. Beyond that line lay the wild lands, the places where pack law didn't reach and only the strongest survived. Evelyn didn't stop running. She crossed the border without hesitation, choosing the unknown danger ahead over the certain death behind. The hunting party watched her disappear into the darkness, and Sebastian stood at the front, his face unreadable. The mate bond, even rejected and severed, still whispered in his chest, and for a moment, something that might have been regret flickered across his features. "Let her go," he said finally. "She's no longer our concern." Charlotte moved beside him, sliding her hand into his. "You made the right choice," she said softly. "I know the bond must have been confusing, but she was never meant for you." "I am." Sebastian looked down at her, golden and perfect in the moonlight, and nodded. But as he turned back toward the pack grounds, he couldn't shake the image of Evelyn's face when he had rejected her, the way her eyes had filled with so much pain that it had nearly brought him to his knees. He pushed the thought away. She was gone now. It was done. Evelyn ran until her legs gave out, collapsing in a hollow beneath a massive oak tree miles beyond the border. Her wolf retreated, leaving her human and naked and shaking with exhaustion. The night air was cold against her bare skin, and she curled into herself, trying to conserve warmth. She was alive. Against all odds, she was alive. But she was also completely alone. The reality of it hit her in waves. She was a rogue now, packless and vulnerable in lands where anything could kill her. She had no clothes, no food, no shelter, and winter was coming. The power inside her hummed beneath her skin, vast and terrifying, but she didn't know how to access it or control it. The moon spirit had said it would take time to fully manifest, but how much time did she have before something in these woods decided to test her? Evelyn wrapped her arms around herself and let the tears come. She cried for the life she had lost, for the family that had never loved her, for the mate who had thrown her away like garbage. She cried until there were no tears left, and then she sat in the darkness and made herself a promise. She would survive this. She would grow stronger. And when she was ready, she would return and make every single one of them pay for what they had done. But first she needed to learn how to stay alive. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of survival. Evelyn learned to hunt small game, her wolf instincts guiding her even when her human mind panicked. She found a cave to shelter in and lined it with dried grass and leaves for warmth. She avoided other wolves, both pack and rogue, terrified that any encounter would end in her death. The power inside her grew slowly, manifesting in small ways. She could sense other wolves from miles away now, feel their presence like a pressure against her skin. She could move through the forest without making a sound, her footsteps naturally silent. And once, when a rogue male cornered her near a stream, her eyes had flashed silver and he had dropped to his knees, whimpering in submission before fleeing in terror. That was when Evelyn realized that even untrained and afraid, she was becoming something dangerous. 3 weeks after her escape, she ventured further into the borderlands, following a stream that promised fresh water and better hunting. The forest here was older, the trees massive and ancient, and there was a quality to the air that felt heavy with power. She should have turned back, should have listened to her instincts screaming that this place was claimed by something far stronger than her. But hunger drove her forward, and she caught the scent of deer. She tracked it carefully, her wolf moving with instinctive grace, and was so focused on her prey that she didn't sense the other presence until it was too late. The deer bolted and Evelyn's head snapped up, her entire body going rigid. Someone was watching her. The presence was enormous, suffocating, like standing in the shadow of a mountain. Evelyn's wolf whimpered and tried to retreat, but she forced herself to stand still, to not show fear even as terror raced through her veins. A figure stepped out from behind a tree and Evelyn's breath caught. He was the largest wolf she had ever seen, even in human form. He stood well over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and a powerful build that spoke of brutal strength. His hair was black as midnight, falling to his shoulders, and his eyes were a startling amber that seemed to glow in the shadows. But it was the aura around him that made her knees weak. This was no ordinary alpha. This was something far more dangerous. "You're trespassing," he said, and his voice was deep and rough like gravel and smoke. "These lands are mine." Evelyn opened her mouth to apologize, to beg for mercy, but the words died in her throat. Because in that moment, as his eyes met hers fully for the first time, the world tilted on its axis. The mate bond slammed into her chest with the force of a freight train. No, not again. This couldn't be happening again. The male's eyes widened fractionally and she knew he felt it too. But unlike Sebastian's disgust, this male's expression remained carefully neutral, almost cold. "A second chance, mate," he said slowly, studying her with those unnerving amber eyes. "How unfortunate for you." Evelyn took a step back, her heart racing. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but his presence rooted her to the spot. The bond pulled tight between them, stronger than anything she had felt with Sebastian, and it terrified her. "I didn't know these lands were claimed," she managed to say, proud that her voice only shook slightly. "I'll leave immediately." "You're a rogue." It wasn't a question. His gaze traveled over her too thin frame, the clothes she had stolen from a clothesline weeks ago that hung loose on her body. "And you're starving. How long have you been in the borderlands?" 3 weeks. His eyebrow raised slightly. 3 weeks as a lone female rogue and you're still alive? Either you're very lucky or you're stronger than you look. Evelyn lifted her chin, refusing to cower even though everything in her screamed to submit to the dominant presence before her. "I'm stronger than I look." Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. "What's your name, little rogue?" "Evelyn." She hesitated, then added, "What's yours?" "Nathaniel." He crossed his arms over his chest, and the movement made his muscles flex beneath his dark shirt. "Though most call me the Hybrid King. I'm sure you've heard the stories." Evelyn's blood turned to ice. Everyone had heard the stories. Nathaniel was a legend whispered in fear across every territory. He was half wolf, half vampire, an abomination that should never have existed. The packs had tried to kill him when his hybrid nature manifested, and he had responded by slaughtering everyone who came against him. They said he had torn through 3 alpha armies before choosing exile over endless war. They said he was brutal, merciless, and completely unstoppable. And he was her second chance, mate. If anyone watching this feels their heart breaking for Evelyn right now, if you believe she deserves justice after everything they did to her, hit that subscribe button. Because only those who stand with the broken and betrayed will see how this story ends. Only true allies of Evelyn will be here when she rises to claim her revenge. "I see you've heard of me," Nathaniel said, a bitter smile crossing his face. "Let me guess. Monster. Killer. Abomination. Did I miss any?" "Exiled," Evelyn said softly. "They say you chose isolation over war." He blinked, clearly surprised by her answer. "That's a generous interpretation. Is it true?" She found herself genuinely curious. "Did you choose to leave?" "I chose not to exterminate them all." His voice was flat, emotionless. "They saw it as mercy. I saw it as exhaustion. After you kill enough people, the bloodshed loses its appeal." Evelyn understood that in a way she wouldn't have a month ago. Before the river, before the rejection, before the hunt, she had believed in redemption and forgiveness. Now she understood the seductive pull of vengeance, the way betrayal could rot in your chest until violence felt like the only option. "You're not afraid of me," Nathaniel observed, studying her with renewed interest. "Why?" "Because I've already survived the worst night of my life," Evelyn said honestly. "And compared to the people who were supposed to love me, a stranger in the woods doesn't seem that terrifying." Something dark and understanding passed across his face. You were rejected. It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. By my mate. By my pack. By my family. They tried to drown me in the Moon River during the festival. When that didn't work, they hunted me into the borderlands to die. Nathaniel's jaw clenched. Your mate rejected you and then tried to kill you? He thought I used dark magic to fake the bond. The words tasted like ash. He called me cursed and severed the bond in front of everyone. My stepsister led the mob that threw me in the river. And yet here you stand. He moved closer and Evelyn's pulse jumped. Surviving in the borderlands where most lone wolves last less than a week. There's more to you than meets the eye, Evelyn. She wanted to tell him about the moon spirit, about her sealed power and her true nature as a moon-bound Luna, but the spirit's warning echoed in her mind. Do not reveal yourself until you are ready. She wasn't ready. She was barely surviving, let alone ready to claim her destiny. I'm just trying to stay alive, she said instead. Nathaniel studied her for a long moment and she could feel him wrestling with something. The mate bond pulsed between them, insistent and undeniable, but he made no move to claim it or acknowledge it beyond that first observation. This bond, he said finally. I assume you don't want it any more than I do. The words shouldn't have hurt, but they did. Evelyn had just barely survived one rejection, and the thought of enduring another made her want to disappear. But she forced herself to meet his eyes and nod. I understand, she said quietly. You don't want a weak, broken rogue as a mate. I won't bother you again. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. That's not what I said. Evelyn looked back, confused. Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. I don't want a mate because I'm dangerous, Evelyn. Everyone I've ever cared about has ended up dead or worse. The vampire side of me craves blood and violence, and the wolf side craves pack and family. The two don't mix well and people get caught in the crossfire. I chose isolation to protect others, not because I don't feel the pull of the bond. Then what are you saying? I'm saying that I can feel your wolf. His amber eyes seemed to see right through her. I can feel power in you that you don't understand yet, strength that's still waking. You're not weak and you're definitely not broken. You're something else entirely, and until you figure out what that is, you're vulnerable. So what do you suggest? He seemed to wage an internal battle, and when he finally spoke his voice was rough. I suggest you stay in my territory. Not as my mate. Not as anything except a rogue under my protection. These lands are warded against intrusion. You'll be safe here while you figure out what you want to do next. Evelyn stared at him, certain she had misheard. You're offering me sanctuary? I'm offering you time. He looked away as if the admission cost him something. The bond makes it impossible for me to send you away knowing you'll likely die within days. Call it a weakness if you want, but I can't do it. So stay. Hunt in my territory. Use my wards for protection. And when you're strong enough to survive on your own, you can leave. It was the kindest thing anyone had done for her in years, and coming from the most feared wolf in existence, it was almost overwhelming. Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. Why? She whispered. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Nathaniel finally looked at her again, and the raw honesty in his eyes stole her breath. Because I know what it's like to be thrown away by everyone who should have protected you. I know what it's like to be called a monster and hunted like an animal. And I know what it's like to survive when the whole world wants you dead. He paused. I won't claim you, Evelyn. I won't trap you in a bond with someone as dangerous as me. But I won't let you die in these woods either. The mate bond thrummed between them, responding to his words with desperate approval, but both of them ignored it. This wasn't about the bond. This was about two broken people recognizing the same wounds in each other. Thank you, Evelyn said softly. I accept your offer. Nathaniel nodded once, sharp and businesslike, as if he hadn't just offered to protect a complete stranger. There's a cabin 2 miles north. It's yours. I'll stay out of your way, but if you need anything, my house is another mile beyond that. You're giving me a cabin? I have several throughout the territory. He shrugged. Leftovers from when I thought I might want company someday. They're just sitting empty. He turned to leave, then paused. One rule, Evelyn. Don't leave the territory without telling me. The wards will let you pass, but I need to know if you're out there. The borderlands are more dangerous than you realize, and there are things in these woods that even I avoid. I'll remember. He nodded again and disappeared into the trees, moving with a predator's grace. Evelyn stood alone in the clearing, her heart still racing, trying to process what had just happened. She had found her second-chance mate, and he had rejected the bond before it could even begin. But instead of cruelty, he had offered her something far more valuable. Safety, time, a chance to grow stronger. The moon spirit had told her to survive, and now she had been given the opportunity. He just had to figure out how to use it. Evelyn found the cabin exactly where Nathaniel had said, a sturdy structure built into the hillside with a clear view of the surrounding forest. Inside, she discovered a fireplace, a bed with clean linens, and shelves stocked with basic supplies. It was more than she had dared hope for, and as she collapsed onto the bed that night, warm and fed for the first time in weeks, she felt something she hadn't felt since before the rejection. Hope. The days turned into weeks, and Evelyn fell into a routine. She hunted in the mornings, practicing with her wolf and growing more confident with each shift. She spent her afternoons exploring the territory, learning its secrets and testing the boundaries of the wards that protected it. And in the evenings she practiced calling on the power that the moon spirit had awakened. Came easier now. Silver light would spark from her fingertips when she concentrated, and she could feel the presence of other wolves from incredible distances. Once she had been gathering herbs near the southern border when she felt a group of rogues approaching. Without thinking, she had pushed her power outward, and the rogues had fled in terror without ever seeing her. She was growing stronger, but she knew it wasn't enough. Not yet. Nathaniel kept his distance as promised, but she saw him sometimes, moving through the forest like a shadow. He never approached, never spoke, but she could feel his presence through the mate bond, a constant awareness that both comforted and unnerved her. 2 months after arriving in his territory, Evelyn woke to find a deer carcass on her porch, freshly killed and prepared. There was no note, no acknowledgement, but she knew who had left it. Winter was coming and hunting would become harder. He was making sure she wouldn't starve. She wanted to thank him, but the rules of their arrangement were clear. Distance. Independence. No claims. So she simply prepared the meat and stored it for the cold months ahead, letting her gratitude remain unspoken. But the mate bond grew stronger despite their efforts to ignore it. Evelyn could feel Nathaniel's emotions sometimes, flashes of his loneliness and self-imposed isolation that mirrored her own. She wondered if he could feel hers too, the slow building of her power and the burning need for revenge that grew sharper each day. 3 months after the rejection, Evelyn stood in front of the mirror in her cabin and barely recognized herself. She had gained weight, her body now lean and strong instead of gaunt. Her hair, which had been dull and lifeless, now shone like spun silver in certain lights. Her eyes, once brown, now held flecks of gold that glowed when her wolf was close to the surface. She was transforming, and it had nothing to do with Nathaniel and everything to do with finally being free of the poison that had suppressed her for years. That night she dreamed of the moon spirit again. "Your power is nearly fully manifested," the spirit said, her voice echoing through the dreamscape. "Soon you will be ready to return and claim your justice." "I don't know if I'm strong enough," Evelyn admitted. "Sebastian is a powerful alpha. My stepsister has the entire pack's loyalty. How can I defeat them?" "You are a moonbound Luna, child. You do not defeat them through force alone." The spirit smiled. "You defeat them by showing them what true power looks like. By making them understand what they threw away. By building something better than what they destroyed." "And the hybrid king?" Evelyn asked hesitantly. "The bond between us grows stronger every day, but we both refuse to claim it. Is that wrong?" "The bond is not meant to be refused or claimed," the spirit said. "It is meant to be chosen. When 2 souls are ready, when they are equals in strength and purpose, then the bond becomes something beautiful. You and Nathaniel are not ready yet. But you will be." Evelyn woke with the spirit's words burning in her mind. Chosen, not claimed. Equals, not possessions. It was so different from everything she had been taught about mates and bonds, but it felt right in a way that Sebastian's violent rejection never had. She decided it was time to stop hiding. That evening she walked the mile through the forest to Nathaniel's house, following the pull of the mate bond. His home was larger than her cabin, built with dark wood and stone, and she could feel powerful wards humming around it. She knocked on the door, and when he opened it, surprise flickered across his face. "Evelyn, is something wrong?" "No," she said. "I just thought it was time we actually talked." As equals, not as a king and a rogue he's tolerating. Something shifted in his expression and he stepped back to let her enter. The interior of his house was surprisingly warm, with thick rugs and comfortable furniture, books lining the walls. It looked like a home, not a monster's lair. "Would you like tea?" he asked, and the domesticity of the question made her want to laugh. "Yes. Thank you." They sat in his living room and for a while they just talked. Nathaniel told her about his childhood, about being born a hybrid and watching his mother die because the pack wouldn't accept what he was. He told her about the years of fighting, the violence that had consumed him, and the moment he had chosen to walk away before he became the monster they claimed he was. Evelyn told him about growing up as the cursed Omega, about the wolfsbane Victoria had fed her, and about the moon spirit's revelation. She told him everything, trusting him with secrets she had kept from the entire world. When she finished, Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. "A moon-bound Luna," he finally said. "I thought they were myths." "So did I. That explains the power I sensed in you." He studied her with new understanding. "And why your former mate was such a fool. He rejected one of the rarest, most powerful wolves in existence because she was wearing a servant's dress. He didn't know. He should have known." Nathaniel's voice was hard. "A true alpha recognizes value, recognizes strength, even when it's hidden." He saw only what he wanted to see. "What do you see?" The question slipped out before Evelyn could stop it. Nathaniel's amber eyes met hers, and the intensity in them made her breath catch. "I see someone who survived what should have killed them. I see someone growing stronger every day, coming into power that will shake the foundations of pack society. I see someone who deserves better than what fate has given them." He paused. "I see someone I want to know better, bond or no bond." The confession hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. "I feel the same," Evelyn admitted. "But I'm not ready for a mate, Nathaniel. Not after Sebastian. Not after everything." "Good," he said, and his smile was genuine. "Because I'm not ready either. But that doesn't mean we can't be friends. Allies. Two people who understand what it's like to be cast out and called monsters. Friends." It was such a simple word, but it felt revolutionary. Evelyn hadn't had a friend in years, hadn't had anyone who saw her as an equal worth knowing. "I'd like that," she said softly. From that night on, everything changed. Nathaniel and Evelyn began training together, and she learned that his reputation as a brutal fighter was well earned. He was fast and strong and absolutely merciless in combat, and he pushed her to be the same. He taught her how to access her moon-bound powers, how to channel them into devastating attacks and impenetrable shields. But they also spent quiet evenings together, reading by the fire or walking through the forest. They talked about everything and nothing, and Evelyn found herself laughing for the first time in years. Nathaniel was funny when he allowed himself to be, with a dry wit that caught her off guard and made her feel lighter. The mate bond pulsed between them constantly, but they treated it like background noise, something present but not controlling. And slowly, carefully, they were building something that had nothing to do with fate or magic and everything to do with genuine respect and growing affection. 5 months after arriving in Nathaniel's territory, Evelyn was ready. Her power had fully manifested, and she could feel it humming in her bones like a living thing. She could command any wolf of lesser rank with a single glance, could heal wounds with her touch, and could even manipulate the mate bonds themselves. She was everything the moon spirit had promised she would be. And it was time to go home. "Are you sure about this?" Nathaniel asked the night before she planned to leave. They sat on his porch watching the stars, and his concern was evident in every line of his body. "I'm sure." Evelyn's voice was steady. "I can't hide forever. They need to answer for what they did." "Then I'm coming with you." She turned to look at him, surprised. "Nathaniel, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." His amber eyes were fierce. "Not because of the bond, although that's screaming at me to protect you, but because you're my friend, Evelyn. And friends don't let friends walk into danger alone." The word friend still made her heart warm, and she reached out to take his hand. His fingers closed around hers, strong and sure, and the mate bond flared with approval. "Thank you," she whispered. They left at dawn, 2 figures moving through the forest with predatory grace. Evelyn had sent word ahead through a rogue messenger, letting Victoria know she was coming and that she wanted a formal pack gathering. She had framed it as a request for judgment, letting them think she was coming back to beg for forgiveness. They had no idea what was really coming for them. The journey took 3 days, and with each mile closer to her former territory, Evelyn felt her power growing stronger. It was responding to the proximity of her birthplace, to the pack lands that should have been hers from the beginning. By the time they reached the border, silver light was dancing across her skin, and her eyes glowed gold even in human form. Nathaniel stopped at the border stones and looked at her seriously. "Last chance to change your mind." "I'm not changing my mind." Evelyn's voice was firm. "But I need you to promise me something. No matter what happens in there, no matter how bad it gets, don't intervene unless I ask. This is my justice to claim." He didn't like it. She could feel his reluctance through the bond, but he nodded. "I promise. But if they try to kill you again, all bets are off." "Fair enough." They crossed the border together, and immediately, every wolf in the territory felt it. The presence of a moonbound Luna was impossible to miss, and Evelyn let her power roll out like a tidal wave, announcing her arrival to everyone within miles. In the pack house, Victoria dropped her teacup and it shattered on the floor. Charlotte went pale, her perfect face twisting with fear. And Sebastian, standing in his study reviewing territory maps, felt the pull of a bond he thought he had severed completely flare back to life. The cursed Omega had returned, and she had brought a monster with her. The pack gathered in the Great Hall just as they had 5 months ago, but this time the atmosphere was electric with tension instead of celebration. Pack members whispered nervously, all of them feeling the suffocating pressure of Evelyn's presence. She hadn't even entered the building yet, and already wolves were dropping to their knees, unable to stand against the weight of her power. Victoria stood at the front of the hall, Charlotte beside her, both of them dressed as if this were a trial they had already won. Sebastian stood slightly apart, his face carefully neutral, but Evelyn could feel his confusion and growing dread through their old bond. The doors opened. Evelyn walked in first, dressed in simple black pants and a silver shirt that seemed to shimmer in the light. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders and her eyes blazed gold. Power radiated from her in waves, and every wolf in the hall felt their knees go weak with the instinctive need to submit. Behind her, Nathaniel prowled like a predator, his amber eyes scanning the crowd for threats. His presence added to the oppressive atmosphere, and when pack members saw who he was, panic rippled through the hall. The hybrid king. She had brought the hybrid king. Evelyn walked down the center aisle, and wolves parted before her like she was made of fire. She stopped in front of Victoria and Charlotte, and neither of them could meet her eyes. "Hello, mother," Evelyn said, and her voice carried through the silent hall. "Hello, sister. It's been a while." Victoria's hands were shaking, but she tried to maintain control. "Evelyn, we thought you were dead." "You tried to make me dead," Evelyn corrected. "You threw me into the Moon River and then sent hunters to finish me off when that didn't work. Did you really think the goddess would let you murder her chosen?" "You're no one's chosen," Charlotte spat, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. "You're cursed. You're nothing." Evelyn smiled, and it was not kind. "Let me show you what nothing looks like." She released a fraction of her power, and Charlotte dropped to her knees with a gasp. Around the hall, weaker wolves followed, forced down by the sheer weight of Evelyn's dominance. Only the strongest remained standing, and even they looked terrified. "I am a moonbound Luna," Evelyn announced, her voice ringing with authority. "Born once every 1,000 years, blessed with power that transcends pack law and alpha dominance. My mother knew what I was and tried to protect me by sealing my power. But Victoria discovered the truth and spent 15 years poisoning me with wolfsbane to keep me weak." Gasps echoed through the hall. Pack members stared at Victoria with growing horror. "That's a lie," Victoria said, but her voice cracked. "Is it?" Evelyn turned to face the crowd. "How many of you wondered why I never shifted? Why I never spoke? Why I seemed cursed? It wasn't the goddess's rejection. It was poison. Deliberate, calculated poison administered by the woman who married into this pack and then murdered my mother to take her place." "You have no proof," Victoria snarled. "Don't I?" Evelyn's eyes flashed silver. "I am a moonbound Luna. The goddess herself speaks to me. Do you really want to call her a liar?" Silence. No one dared challenge that claim. Evelyn's gaze swept to Sebastian, who stood frozen, his face pale. "And you, Alpha Sebastian. You felt our bond and immediately rejected it because I was beneath you. You called me cursed and accused me of dark magic. You let them throw me into the river to drown. Sebastian's jaw clenched. I didn't know. You didn't care to know, Evelyn interrupted. You saw a servant and decided that was all I could ever be. You never asked my name. You never gave me a chance to speak. You just destroyed me and walked away. The rejected bond between them pulsed with pain and bitterness, and Sebastian flinched as if she had struck him. I came here today to show you all what you threw away, Evelyn continued, addressing the entire hall. To show you what happens when you judge by appearances instead of truth. To show you that the weakest among you might have been your greatest strength. She turned back to Victoria and Charlotte. You tried to erase me. You tried to make me disappear so completely that no one would remember I ever existed. But I survived. I grew stronger. And now I'm back to claim what was always mine. And what is that? Victoria asked, her voice barely a whisper. Evelyn's smile turned sharp. Justice. Before anyone could react, Evelyn raised her hand and silver light exploded from her palm. It wrapped around Victoria like chains, forcing the truth from her lips whether she wanted to speak or not. Did you poison me with wolfsbane? Evelyn asked, her voice cold. Yes, Victoria gasped, the word torn from her against her will. Did you murder my mother? Yes. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Charlotte's face went white. Did you know I was a moonbound Luna? Yes. Victoria's eyes were wild with terror. I found your mother's journal after she died. She had written everything. About what you were, about the seal, about the power you would inherit. I couldn't let you take what was meant for Charlotte. I couldn't let you ruin everything we had built. The truth hung in the air like poison. And if you're watching this thinking that Victoria deserves everything coming to her, if you believe Evelyn has earned her justice, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because only those who stand with truth over lies will see how this ends. Only those who support real power over stolen crowns will witness what happens next. Evelyn released the truth spell and let Victoria collapse, gasping. Then she turned to Charlotte, who was trying to back away. And you, dear sister. Did you know what your mother was doing? Charlotte's eyes darted around the room looking for escape, but there was none. I didn't know at first. I swear I didn't. But you found out. Charlotte's silence was answer enough. When? Evelyn pressed, moving closer. When did you discover that your mother was poisoning me? When did you realize that your entire life was built on murder and lies? 3 years ago, Charlotte whispered. I found the wolfsbane in her room. She told me everything. She said it was for the good of the pack, that you were dangerous, that you would destroy everything if your power ever woke. So you helped her. Evelyn's voice was soft, deadly. You helped poison me. You helped keep me weak. And then, when your plan started to fail, when the Moon River broke the seal and my power woke anyway, you tried to finish the job by having me killed. I was protecting the pack, Charlotte said desperately. You don't understand what it means to be Luna. You can't just show up with power and expect everyone to follow you. Leadership is earned. You're right, Evelyn agreed. Leadership is earned. So tell me, Charlotte, what have you earned? The loyalty you built on lies? The respect you gained through your mother's murders? The crown you're about to wear because you helped poison the true Luna? Charlotte had no answer. Evelyn turned to address the entire hall. I am not here to slaughter you all, though the goddess knows I have the right. I am not here to burn this pack to the ground, though I could. I am here to give you a choice. She let her power flare, and every wolf in the hall felt it, felt the absolute authority that came with being moonbound. You can acknowledge what Victoria and Charlotte did. You can strip them of their positions and cast them out as rogues, just as you did to me. Or you can stand with them and face the consequences of supporting murderers and liars. The silence was deafening. Pack members looked at each other, at Victoria and Charlotte, at Evelyn blazing with power. The choice was clear, but acknowledging it meant admitting they had been wrong, that they had persecuted an innocent for years. Finally, Elder Thomas, the oldest pack member, stepped forward. He had always been kind to Evelyn, one of the few who had never actively participated in her humiliation. I stand with truth, he said clearly. I stand with our true Luna. Victoria and Charlotte should be punished for their crimes. One by one, pack members began to step forward, joining Elder Thomas. Some did it reluctantly, some with clear relief, but they all made the same choice. Within minutes, only a handful of wolves remained loyal to Victoria and Charlotte. This isn't over, Victoria hissed, but her power was broken. Without pack support she was nothing. Actually it is, Evelyn said. Elder Thomas, as the oldest pack member and keeper of pack law, what is the punishment for murdering a Luna and attempting to murder her daughter? Elder Thomas's face was grave. Death or permanent exile. Then I choose exile, Evelyn said. Let them live with what they've done. Let them survive as rogues in the borderlands just as I did. Let them learn what it means to be hunted and rejected and called worthless. Victoria and Charlotte were dragged from the hall, both of them screaming protests, but no one listened. The pack had made their choice and justice was being served. That left Sebastian. Evelyn turned to face him and the hall went silent again. The alpha stood alone, his face carefully neutral, but she could feel the turmoil in him through their bond. You rejected me, she said softly. You called me cursed and severed our bond. You let them throw me into the river. You sent hunters after me. Every step of the way you chose cruelty over compassion, power over truth. I was wrong, Sebastian said, and his voice was rough with emotion. I was so wrong, Evelyn. I see that now. I see what I threw away. Do you? She moved closer. Because from where I'm standing you only care now that you know what I am. If I had just been a servant, if I hadn't discovered my power, you wouldn't give me a second glance. Sebastian flinched because they both knew it was true. I don't want your regret, Evelyn continued. I don't want your apologies. I want you to understand something. You had a chance to see past appearances, to recognize your mate even when she was at her lowest, and you failed. That's not my failure, Sebastian. It's yours. She raised her hand and silver light glowed between them. I have the power to sever your mate bond permanently. To make sure you never feel the pull of a fated mate again. That's the price of rejection, the consequence that most alphas never face. Sebastian's eyes widened with horror. Evelyn, please. But I won't, she interrupted. Because that would be cruel and I'm not you. I'm not going to destroy you just because I have the power to do so. Instead, I'm going to give you something far worse. What? The truth. Evelyn's smile was bitter. You will feel our bond every day for the rest of your life. You will feel me living, growing, thriving without you. You will feel when I choose someone else. You will feel everything you could have had, and you will know that you threw it away because you couldn't see past a servant's dress. She turned away from him and walked back to where Nathaniel stood waiting. The hybrid king had watched everything with those intense amber eyes, and when she reached him, he offered her his hand. Evelyn took it without hesitation. The pack gasped as they saw the gesture, saw the way power sparked between them, saw the unmistakable glow of a mate bond forming. This is Nathaniel, Evelyn announced to the hall. The hybrid king. My second chance mate. The male who took me in when I had nothing, who trained me and protected me and treated me like an equal instead of a possession. She looked back at Sebastian one last time. You rejected me because I wasn't good enough for you. He refused to claim me because he thought he wasn't good enough for me. That's the difference between a true alpha and an entitled fool. The words hit Sebastian like physical blows, and through their bond, Evelyn felt his soul fracture with understanding of what he had lost. I'm not staying, Evelyn continued, addressing the pack. This territory is no longer my home. Elder Thomas, you have my permission to choose a new Luna, someone who will actually serve the pack instead of using it for personal gain. He'll learn to look deeper than appearances. Where will you go? Elder Thomas asked. Evelyn looked at Nathaniel and he smiled at her, real and warm and full of understanding. I'm going back to the borderlands. I'm going to build something new there, a sanctuary for rogues and outcasts, for all the wolves that pack society has thrown away. And when I'm ready, when we're ready, Nathaniel and I will claim our bond properly. As equals. As chosen partners, not forced mates. Nathaniel's eyes blazed with approval and he squeezed her hand. The mate bond pulsed between them with joy and anticipation. And if anyone tries to stop us, Nathaniel added, his voice deadly soft, they will learn why I am called a king. No one moved to stop them. Evelyn and Nathaniel walked out of the great hall together, leaving chaos and transformation in their wake. As they crossed the border back into the wild lands, Evelyn felt lighter than she had in her entire life. She had faced her demons, claimed her justice, and refused to become the monster they had tried to make her. Are you okay? Nathaniel asked once they were deep in the forest. I'm better than okay. Evelyn stopped and turned to face him. Thank you for being there. For not intervening even though I know you wanted to. It was your moment, he said simply. Your justice. I was just honored to witness it. They stood in the moonlight, power and understanding flowing between them, and Evelyn realized that the moon's spirit had been right. The bond wasn't meant to be claimed or refused. It was meant to be chosen, and she was finally ready to choose. Nathaniel, she said softly. I'm not ready for forever yet. I'm still healing, still learning who I am outside of pain and survival. But I'm ready to try. I'm ready to see what we could be together if we both choose it. His answering smile was like sunrise. I'm ready too. No claims, no expectations. Just two people choosing each other one day at a time. One day at a time, Evelyn agreed. He pulled her into his arms, and when their lips met, the mate bond exploded with silver and gold light, sealing their choice. It wasn't a claiming. It wasn't a possession. It was a promise between equals, and it was more powerful than any forced bond could ever be. When they finally pulled apart, Nathaniel rested his forehead against hers. "Pie Queen," he whispered. "Pie Chosen One. My equal." "Pie King," she replied. "My protector. My partner." They stood together in the moonlight, two outcasts who had found each other against all odds, and Evelyn knew that this was just the beginning. She would build her sanctuary. She would train other rejected wolves to find their power. And together she and Nathaniel would rewrite what it meant to be mates, what it meant to have power, what it meant to be whole. Sebastian would feel it all through their old bond. Every moment of her happiness, every touch she shared with Nathaniel, every victory she claimed. He would feel her thriving without him, and it would haunt him for the rest of his life. That was justice. Not slaughter. Not revenge. But truth and growth, and choosing a better future over repeating the past. Evelyn had drowned in that river as a broken Omega with no voice and no power. She had risen as a moon-bound Luna with strength that made alphas kneel. But more importantly, she had risen as herself, choosing her own path, claiming her own destiny, and refusing to let anyone ever define her worth again. And that was the greatest power of all. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you for being part of Evelyn's journey. You weren't a villain after all.